Welcome back to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. I have a really hilarious person with me who I have found to be a joy to work with and a great problem solver. We have Ryan Farmer here with us. What's up, man?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. That was very, very humbling. Thank you.
No problem. So what we're going to do, we're going to be talking to Ryan about what he does in the industry, how long he's been in the industry, and then go back into the past and how he got started into games, and if this is something that he knew he was going to get into off the jump. We're going to go right into his background right now. He's a tools and automation engineer currently. What does a tools and automation engineer do? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so maybe a little bit better way to describe my title. I am a tools and automation engineer, but I'm also a DevOps engineer. So a lot of what I'm doing is really going to be more on backend infrastructure, tooling for our services, and automating as much as humanly possible. I also fall into the role of administration for a lot of the services that we're running, for example, Perforce. On a day-to-day, we're looking at doing...
Well, I know day to day, you're the type of person that if a problem comes up within our programs or tools, something's not working, I go to you if not to Nate. So I don't know if that's the appropriate, but you always seem to have the answer to help out to make sure everything is running smooth. But I know you have more responsibilities than that. But yeah.
Right. And you see me doing a lot of firefighting, and that's something that I'm traditionally very used to. A lot of previous positions that I've held, I've fallen into that firefighter role. Generally, I have my tasks of things to do, like upgrading the engine or writing a tool to help increase productivity for our designers, or to help automate this task that somebody's doing repetitively, or even just automate stuff that I do repetitively.
And that's throughout the studio, right? Or is that just per project usually for what your title is?
For my title, I'm supposed to be on a single game, so I'm only supposed to be working for one game, but I have a bad habit of trying to write all of my services and tools to be as cross-platform, as cross-team, as cross-game as humanly possible. So that way, if I write something useful, somebody else can use it.
Yeah, and I think it makes it better for the studio because everybody's on the same tools or on the same process and pipeline instead of having multiple things, and now you have to cater and manage multiple things. Maybe things you didn't even come up with is certain things that other projects will want to use. So yeah, that could be time consuming.
Right. And there's a lot of services that are very similar. Logging infrastructure, it's the same. Our launcher that we use, the game launches the same way. The build system is pretty much identical for both games with just minor modifications for each of them. Are
you on a team of one? Is it just you, or are there multiple people that you work with?
Me, my team of DevOps engineers, which is me, myself, and I.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just me right now. We are looking at getting one more, plus one, very soon. So trying to grow out the team, maybe establish ourselves as a shared service between games and start growing it so that way for future games, we actually have a team of people that are dedicated to being able to migrate all the services to that game to help kick it off really fast.
Are DevOps teams usually large, or are they really catered towards those lone star like individuals that can do so many things, and you kind of keep the team small?
You mostly see DevOps teams, especially in the gaming industry, to be a lot more efficient, small, and you really want one person per game at least, so that way they can cater to that game specifically. That's why we run into a couple of issues with our games. I'm one person split between two teams, and sometimes someone's like, "Oh, I need help over here," and it's like, "Oh no, I have to go to game one first. I'm so sorry."
Well, you're doing a great job, man.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think anybody's complaining about anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to go way back. We're going to go way back. Back to when you started your education. And the closest that we have is Mariah Costa. Is that saying?
Miracosta Community College.
We have had a lot of people that started community college. I mean, it's these times, it's really good to get your GE out of the way, general education classes out of the way, and then just start going. But what led you to go to the college of choice? And did you know you want to be DevOps or work with tools from the get-go?
I hope you don't mind me going even back further in time.
All right.
Back right after high school, 2009, I went to graduated high school, of course, and went to Sonoma State University to become an architect. I wanted to
for a building for buildings, or for architect within the digital space of like games and stuff like that?
It was going to be more in buildings, like Frank Lloyd Wright, for example. That joke's on me because I'm still an architect. So I went to school, Sonoma State University, for about a year and realized that that's not what I wanted to do and that I wasn't ready for college. When I came back to San Diego, I went ahead and applied to Miracosta Community College and started looking into other things I might be interested in. So at that time,
Are you from California?
Yeah, born and raised San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I have had a background of liking computers, no programming background, but I really liked working and tinkering with computers. I've been using Linux for, at this point, like 14 years. So I knew that I had some interest in programming, or not programming, but computers. And I went ahead and took my first computer science class at Miracosta Community College. Of course, my initial interest is video games. I go in there like, I'm going to learn how to make games. And that was number one, what I was going to do. And I said my number one goal, do not become a web developer. That was all I wanted, was not to be a web developer. Don't know why. I can't remember why I didn't want that. But as we will talk, I didn't get to stick to that plan.
Did you teach yourself Linux like back in the day, or did you take courses, or how did you go to that as your operating system of choice? A lot of people either go Mac or PC. Like,
I don't have the best excuse. I remember seeing a video on YouTube of somebody using something called Compass Fusions, which is something you can get on Linux as a window manager. And the things I was looking at were something called wobbly windows and different animations for when you close out of the windows. And I was just like, this looks so cool. I want to have a desktop cube for multiple desktops, all this functionality, and downloaded, installed it, got it working on my computers, and I just never went back. I use nowadays, it's much different. I'm in the enterprise world. I'm trying to be professional. I got Windows on my desktop, got my MacBook Pro, and all of the servers that are run at home and in the cloud are all Linux.
That's awesome. And you set that up all by yourself, like currently at home, or did you have any help setting up all that to have all that automation at home work for you as well?
Most of the stuff I do is independent. I like to tinker. I like to explore. I like to learn new things. One of our principles that we have had a fundamental concepts that we try to apply to ourselves in our group in engineering is to learn and be curious. Always learn and be curious. My boss really likes to express that is extremely important. And it's something that I've carried throughout my entire career, if you will.
That's good. When you were at college, did they have any courses geared towards gaming in general, or was it more GE classes and electives that you could just like focus on? They didn't really have any video game programs or like programming programs for video games or anything like that.
There were no game programming classes. Okay. I had my share of GEs just as we had to do it, taking speech and English and yeah, you gotta do it. But there were computer science classes, CS 111 through 13. It's beginner, intermediate, data structure, architecture types, compilers and assembly language. So I took some classes on C++, mobile development back when Android was super hot. It's still hot, sorry.
Yeah, Android is good. It's the best. It's the best.
So I got the bulk of my experience there. And I kind of took that experience that I got there and applied it to different things that I had. I'd ask friends that had occupations at different companies, hey, can I write a piece of software for you? Hey, can I automate some
you're fine.
Some meaningless task that you have to do that you don't like? And a lot of my friends were like, oh my gosh, I do this thing every day that I just really could use some automation with. And that's kind of where I guess automation started. I just realized that I really liked taking redundant tasks and simplifying it to push this button, or don't push this button, it runs on its own kind of thing.
It's like being the controller. You're in control of everything that happens. The conductor of sorts,
the conductor. Right? I don't want to say the controller, but the conductor. I helped guide things in the right direction to kind of autonomously do their thing.
That's awesome. Let's go back to you went right from education going into a sales associate. So what happened there? Did you have a change of heart? were you looking for a job in the games industry? Did you even know you want to get into the games industry yet, even though you want to make video games? A lot of people want to be indie. So you were a sales associate for 3 years. What happened there after graduating? And
So actually, I worked at that pet store when I was going to school.
oh, okay. So you put yourself through school,
Yep.
or was it
Yeah.
okay?
I put myself through school. Again, it was a community college. I could afford it. And the pet store was just kind of the thing that I really liked to do. I was just coming out of Sonoma State University. I just realized that architecture isn't what I wanted it to be. It may be a hobby. And I'm going to Miracosta Community College while going to the pet store just to get back on that. Did I want to do gameplay programming from the beginning? I knew that it was somewhere deep inside. I wanted to do it. I've been playing video games since I was 2 years old. Been kicking my dad's butt since I was 3. And I just knew that I had to do something with games. My parents are always like, video games will never get you anywhere. And now I'm the one laughing. Ha, ha, ha.
That's funny.
But the pet store was just kind of like gotta make money when you're learning, I guess.
No, that's good. That's awesome. That shows that you're a responsible person.
Oh man, thank you.
So you went from sales associate to IT specialist at the Harris Group Technology Service. You were there for 3 years and 11 months again in San Diego. Can you tell us a little bit about what your responsibilities were there?
Sure, yeah. So I actually did that asynchronously with working at the pet store and going to school. So I got to work with good Sir Sean Harris. He is a wonderful gentleman who I bothered. He came to the pet store, and I was talking to him, asking some questions about some home automation I was trying to do. I was trying to set up like Arduino's motors to go ahead and like automatically roll my blind curtains and unlock my door and lock it over Wi-Fi. Back before it was mainstream, there wasn't any third-party thing you could buy. I kind of had to make it yourself using like servos.
So this was like pre-Raspberry Pi or something like that?
This is pre-Raspberry Pi.
Oh, hi.
Not much before, but it was pre-Raspberry Pi.
Oh, hi.
So using like Zigbee protocols to go ahead and have lightweight, efficient wireless data transfer inside a small area. It was
That's cool.
super fun. So I asked him those questions, and he was like, "What are you again? What are you doing?" And I was like, "I work at a pet store." Hooray. And he asked if I wanted to do some work with him. So this was actually very interesting. It was freelance IT. And we did it together. He was kind of the one that scouted out the jobs, and then we'd kind of go places he'd send me, or I'd find a job, I'd go take it, or we'd go somewhere together.
It was like an apprenticeship almost, right?
Yeah, no, I think that was my first big boy job. But I went to a lot of interesting places. It really did just anything. Like we went to, goodness gracious, what was that? It was like the Padres Stadium, baseball stadium, San Diego.
I'm not sure.
I'm not, forgive me.
This is not a quiz. You're okay.
Okay, good. Where we're installing all of the wireless charging units and charging boxes in the stadium. And so we get to go there before the stadium's open and install all of these tables and units in the walls, and it's very fun. I got to go on a baseball field all myself. I probably shouldn't have, but it was very cool.
One of the perks.
Yeah, one of the perks of being in that stadium all by yourself. I got to do, it's a lot of like cable dropping, data mining, like pulling cables out, and we got to sell them, which is nice for copper recycling plants. You make a pretty good money back then.
That's pretty cool. I think people still make good money off of ripping copper out and stuff like that.
I was paid to do it, and I got to sell it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So are you saying that the wires were going through copper piping?
Yeah. So all the Ethernet cables. So when you have like an office building, you have to set up a lot of the cabling inside the building to go ahead and get wired Ethernet to each of the units. So if you have like a bunch of people at like desks, you want to have dropped cables over there. So one of the tasks that I do is somebody would come into purchasing a location, and they want to rip out all of the old cabling and replace it with new cabling. And so we'd be able to go there, take it all out, shove it in my little Honda Civic, and then drop all new cable. So that way we can make sure that it's the right number of lines. There's no problem, because a lot of times we'll pull cables and we'll see like a rat's nest of like knotted, cut, chewed
just
through.
poor craftsmanship of the last people who put it in.
Yeah, either poor craftsmanship or just maybe like rodents, just kind of messing things up. And so we just kind of straightened it up, cleaned it up, new, like going from like Cat 5 to Cat 6 if necessary, whatever the client wanted. So we did a lot of that.
Now wait, I've seen those. I've seen that bundled up when people drop in new lines and wires and stuff like that. But I didn't know they went through copper.
Yeah, it's all copper cabling. It's like the blue cable.
Yeah.
You see like a. Forgive me if this is inappropriate, but that's like a Reddit cable porn.
No, that's totally fine.
It's a wonderful subreddit where it shows magnificent cabling jobs.
It's like beautifully done. Yeah, I've seen people actually do that on the job, and I'm like, wow, that took some time.
That's what I
but
did.
It works
and
well.
It takes some time
Yeah.
if you want to do it well. And I actually really like doing that. That was a lot of fun, especially when you have like this just one tube of just the cable just like dropping down into the server room.
Yeah.
And just everything lines up perfectly.
That's awesome. But those rooms have to stay like super cold, right?
A lot of data centers will have AC units to go ahead and keep them cool. Some don't. That's fine. Future Ryan actually got to work in right next to the data center in Daybreak Games, and that one, if the AC unit wasn't on, that could jump up to over 130 degrees air temperature, just ambient air temperature.
And that's when stuff just starts shutting off and stuff, right?
Things start melting. Yeah,
that's crazy.
it's hot.
That's pretty crazy. So, you did this for 3 years. So it was you and one other person, and you guys, it was like entrepreneurship. He found the work, and you guys just went out and
yeah,
the
small
job.
business. We just kind of, I guess, not more entrepreneurship. We just found the jobs, and it was all over Southern California. So we went everywhere.
That's awesome.
Done from Las Americas up to like Long Beach, Palm Desert, Palm Springs. Just it was whatever there was work, and I just kind of did that when I had time between pet store and school.
Now, in doing that, did you learn on the job for that role you had, or did the things you did in college prepare you a little bit for it at all?
It was 100% on the job. It's Sean taught me what I could. Like there's forgive me for laughing. It's like I learned how to drive a scissor lift on my own.
Oh, that's funny. That's cool. What's a scissor lift? I don't know what that is.
So it's like those carts that have the so like you want to read something on the ceiling, right?
Okay.
So it's a little cart. You hop in it, and it extends out this way.
Oh, does it have like the thing that's like this, and they just keep accordion
it's an accordion, and you just go up, and then you do the thing in the ceiling, and you drop it down.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun learning how to drive that.
That's
I
awesome.
got to learn how to drive forklifts and stuff.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Had a lot of fun, but yeah, Sean taught me most of what I had to do there. He was a really good mentor in making sure that I was good at what I did, and we had a lot of fun together too. So that was that bonus.
That's awesome. Let's go back to what you worked on next. You went from IT specialist to lead web developer. You said you didn't want to be a web developer early on. I remember you said that. So yeah, what happened there? You were only there for 11 months, not even a full year in San Diego Web Solution. So
yes, SD Web Solution. It was Web Solution without the S at the end because the domain name was taken.
That's hilarious. So what happened there? I mean, like you already proclaimed earlier in our conversation that you didn't want to be a web developer. Why didn't you want to be a web developer? Web development now is like huge, like, especially
it's pretty hot.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very lucrative field to be in. But why didn't you want to go into web development back in the day?
So I guess like amongst peers while I was in school, there was kind of a negative connotation with people who became web developers. Like they weren't.
In what way?
real.
What do you mean? I'm not following you because I don't think. When I was in school, nobody was even talking about, oh, man, I want to be a web developer. It wasn't even like that. So please explain. I want to know.
Right. I guess back when I was learning Java and C++ and Python, web development was not really popular at the time. Like there was it was PHP, HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, and a little bit of
It was
CSS.
kind of in its infancy still, right? I mean, like not infancy, but what was
was
the last system? It wasn't Netscape and AOL. Like what was the big thing when you went? Alta
Firefox
Vista?
and Chrome was still
that's
in
still
use.
that's new. That was okay.
It was new. It wasn't like current where you have like Angular, Vue.js, React, and people learn frameworks before they learn JavaScript. Oh,
Right.
it's horrible now.
So you didn't want to do it because
There was just like a negative connotation around what you became if you did web development. They're like we'd spread. It was unkind words regarding people calling themselves programmers when they made websites, and like I know HTML, therefore I'm a programmer. So there was that, and it's like knowing a scripting language. You're not a programmer, so it was really there was like a way to be a programmer, and if you didn't do it that way, then others looked down upon you. It was very judgmental, and I was very afraid of falling into that category.
Of being judged, you mean?
Of being judged. I don't want to be a scrubby web developer. And still, it happened. I started learning PHP. I started learning about back-end programming.
Did you enjoy it? Was it, once you actually sat down and was like, let me do this, were you like, oh my God, this is not only easy, but it's fun?
Yeah, I remember I had my very first socket communication between Python and a Python client and a PHP server, which if anybody knows what I'm talking about, that's pretty heinous. And I remember having I had like RGB LED strips. This is like almost a decade ago. RGB LED strips around my couch, around my coffee table, around my desk, around my computer, around my TV, and I wanted to remotely control it, like the RGB LEDs, from my phone. And so I set up a PHP script that I was calling whenever I moved my thumb over an RGB wheel to go ahead and set the color of the LEDs. And I got to do that over...
That you wrote? Did you write the script,
Yeah.
or did you find it online or something? Or
Yeah, I wrote it.
Okay.
I'm kind of going through documentation for PHP. PHP is a pretty easy language to learn. And so I had Python was my backend. PHP was also my backend, but that was the only way I knew how to communicate from a web client to a backend. And then I only knew how to control the RGB LEDs with Python. This is when I first started learning how to write code. And I remember how excited I was to do. I was like, oh man, it's network programming. Not really, but it felt like it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, right after that, I started working with a really good friend. His name was Daniel Khajapur, and he came to America and wanted the American dream. And so he was Mr. Entrepreneur and starting businesses and doing that. And I remember when I met him, we were paintballing, and he's like, "There's something different about you. Can we get coffee or something?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so we started talking. He's like, "I want to do this. I want to have a web business, and I think we can make a lot of money." And I was like, "It's maybe time for me to start making some more money."
That's
So
awesome.
I joined him in his venture to make websites for clients. WordPress, Magento, Shopify, OpenCart, whatever framework the client wanted or whatever we thought was best. And
Is he still doing that now?
no, actually, shortly after I left SD Web Solution, the company got purchased as he started working on a content management system in PHP, and it actually he had switched over clients from WordPress to his content management system. And they just couldn't look back. They said it was just so much better than using any of the other platforms. And so instead of letting him make it big, they bought him. And I'm super happy for him. That was awesome. And so he kind of did some management role over there, and now he's kind of doing more entrepreneurial stuff and living a good life.
That's cool. Did you go to Camp Pendleton when you guys played paintball?
This was Temecula.
Okay.
Jungle Forest, or no, shoot, what is it? I think it was just called the Jungle. Up in Temecula, and it's really hot. But that's where we would go paintballing every once in a while.
Oh, I didn't know one was there. The only one I went to was Camp Pendleton, and then there was another one. I want to say near Costa Mesa, or it starts with a C or something. I don't remember. Something Valley or something Village, something like that.
Valley sounds familiar, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh well, it's paintball. Let's get. So when you worked as a web developer, now were you using things that you learned in college mostly, or when you got into this position, because you got in as a lead, how many people were on your team? Was it just you and the guy, was this a title grab? This
was a title grab.
Okay.
This was me and my friend Daniel Khajapur, and we just kind of worked together. And
he's like, "What do you want your title to be?"
It was like he was CEO, I was CTO. You know,
No, that's cool.
We worked with some outsourced individuals, Brazil and India, and we were able to kind of scale it that way.
That's
but
cool.
we send out our emails. We had like our office pictures where we rented an office for a week
to take photos.
Like us
That's
drinking
awesome.
coffee and there's nothing in the cup. It's pretty bad.
That's pretty hilarious. But you guys made it successful. And so did he get purchased after the 11 months you were there?
Yeah, there's a couple months
That's
afterwards.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he did most of the work on the CMS on his own. I'm I wish I was could have been part of that adventure, but I had left because I had another opportunity that I was interested in pursuing.
Nice. Is that the next opportunity on the list, which is
Oh, that's
the Petco animal?
No,
Is it that one?
It's not that one. So
Is this out of order?
it's not out of order.
Okay.
So
You want to continue your night job of?
I did the pet store at the same time as everything else that I was doing.
But you became the dog and cat department manager now.
I
Nice.
did. It's
Nice.
events and more petting dogs and cats. Oh, I loved
That's
it.
awesome.
I have a soft spot for animals.
This was your side hustle then.
Yeah.
So
That's my side hustle.
Petco is your side hustle.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I loved it.
you stayed on as a sales associate and then moved into the department manager.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Is it the same company?
So Pet People got purchased. It was actually
Okay.
an independently owned pet store. It's a holistic pet food store, so no corn, wheat, soy, artificial flavoring, artificial products of any kind.
And a lot of them are doing that now. Like I think Petco just they had some announcement where they took everything off the shelves if it had any artificial something or artificial flavors.
Yeah, it's super common. They noticed that, so they started a new brand of
Mm-hmm.
Petco called Unleashed. And Unleashed was really mimicking what Pet People was. Not specifically Pet People, but like independent pets food stores that were like that. Because people were really interested in providing the best health for their dogs and cats that they possibly could. And I was super behind it. I loved it. And I still, to this day, really enjoy talking shop with people.
That's
like,
awesome.
oh, what are you feeding your dog? What are you feeding your cat?
What should we be feeding our dog and cats? Do you even know right now?
If you have a healthy dog, healthy skin and coat, wet nose, they're happy, wagging their tail, then you're doing a good job.
That's awesome. So when you were still working there at the pet store, do you still do that on the side now?
Oh,
Or
no,
at all, or?
I had last time I worked as a sales associate or had an hourly rate going for anything was August. I think that was like last time right there, August 2014.
Okay.
Before going to Prismic or 3D product imaging.
Now wait, I want to stay here for a little bit. So did you, while all the time you were doing this, did you have any pets yourself? Or did you just enjoy the pets that were at the store and keep them happy and play with them and stuff?
That was my happy place. So
Oh,
I
okay.
did that while going to school, while doing 3D product imaging.
Stress
not
relief.
3D product imaging. I did that while doing SD Web Solution. So SD Web Solution, working with Sean Harris, Pet Store, and any side project that I could try to find. I remember trying to start a video game development company with some friends, making a game called Regalia Reach, and using Java and the lightweight Java game library, as we called it, Lejiggle, and put a lot of time into that. But I knew that I always had one place that I could go to, and that place was the pet store.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great stress relief too, to be able to go there and just decompress.
Yes, excellent. People that like their dogs, that care for their animals, they're friends of mine.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now we're going to Prismic. Is that how you say that?
Prismic.
Yes. And that's in Seattle. So you moved from California to go to Seattle, or did you work remote?
I dropped everything. The pet store, SD Web Solution.
Was this the calling? Was this like, I did it, I'm there? Was this the
No,
position that you felt that way?
My friend, a childhood friend of mine.
Okay.
He graduated college. He was looking for something to do and met some goofy characters up in Seattle as he went to school up there, and started doing an internship at this startup, 3D product imaging, which ended up turning into Prismic. And he had talked to his mom, who talks to my mom, who knows a thing or two about what I'm doing. And he called me one day and said, like, hey, I heard you're doing VR programming stuff. And I was like, occasionally. I had the first Oculus Rift, DK1, and I'd been dabbling in Unity. I was bad, but I was dabbling, and I let him know that. And he's like, well, I have some people that want to meet you, and like, we're doing a startup thing. We're looking for another developer to kind of help with this product. And I was like, super cool. So I fly up to Seattle, knowing that I might just, for the first time in my entire life, move out of San Diego to a new state, new city, new people, new weather.
Was that first flight that was for the interview, or was that just okay?
Yeah, that was for the interview. It was 1 week up there, so I got to hang out with my friend, meet the people who work at the company. We had like a 1 day interview where kind of going through and implementing they're looking at like their backend infrastructure and just trying to expand their API, and they didn't know what I could do, and they didn't know how to test me, and I didn't know how I was supposed to be tested. And so I kind of showed them like, look, here's something that I could do really quickly. Here's like an authentication portal, and this is like the backend API for our authentication and logging in.
Now, API, what is that? For people who may be interested in getting into that and don't know what that is, what is that?
So you have API, and APIs are something that you can have front end and back end. So most people will understand APIs knowing them as REST APIs or RESTful APIs, something that you can call over the web. I'm trying to remember the acronym, because I always say API, but I never say what it actually is. I believe it's Application Programming Interface. But it's essentially an interface for you to retrieve some functionality, retrieve some data. So sometimes it's like get this data or set this data. And so I was making APIs that were RESTful, so over the web, to say like authenticate user, log out user, all that kind of stuff. Register user, save this to a database. Is very, very basic rudimentary stuff. And so I showed them that I could do that, and they're like, wow, it's amazing. They hired me on as a Samurai developer because they still didn't really know what I could do, and neither did I.
And then from there, like, how was that? You were there for 1 year and 8 months. How was Seattle during that time?
I was afraid of Seattle at first. I'm, born and raised in San Diego, beautiful, sunny, 70 degrees, blue skies, San Diego. And
was it a lot of rain there when you were there? Or
it was.
That's what they say.
100% humidity during the winter, but honestly, the summers are gorgeous. You're up in the northern hemisphere, so when it's winter, you wake up, it's dark. You go to work, your work is over, it's dark. But during the summer, you wake up, it's bright. It's 10 p.m. It's still bright outside.
Oh wow!
Like right now, it's probably bright outside.
I didn't know you still got that up in Seattle like that.
Oh yeah, summers are gorgeous, but winters are 100% humidity, and so it's light rain, heavy rain down here. It's light rain, thick mist.
That's funny. It's like walking through the sprinkler or someone misting the water hose on you or something like that.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of people carrying umbrellas because it didn't really rain that hard. So everybody's kind of toughed it out with a coat on.
I've been up there before, but I went up there for like a trade show. I think it was like PAX, one of the PAX
PAX
shows.
is up there, PAX West.
Have you been to any of those trade shows up there when you were there?
I never went to
I think they were popular then.
The only thing I did up there was a good friend of mine from Mira Costa Community College, Aaron Jacobs. And Aaron Jacobs, if you ever watch this, it was wonderful getting to work with him. He was always the better programmer at Mira Costa Community College, and I always wanted to like try harder, and he was always better.
Were you guys in the same year or?
Yeah, same year, same classes. So we took a lot of our classes together, and so we had a lot of fun, like making games, like our computer science programming projects that we'd have for the end of semester. We always worked really hard. So I feel like we kind of tried to outdo each other. But he was always really good. It's
good to have that competitiveness in school like that with a friend. That's awesome.
I loved it. It was some of the best years of my life.
That's awesome.
And he's at Double Fine now.
Oh, cool. So you guys still keep in touch now, or
not as much as I'd like to?
Well, you have to send him the link.
Once
this is posted. That's awesome.
So he's at Double Fine, and I saw on I think Facebook or something that he's in Seattle, and I was like, what the heck, man, I'm in Seattle. What are you doing? And he invited me to one of their after parties for PAX. And so I got to meet everybody from Double Fine. And I think Gang Beasts was still in development, but we got to play a demo there. So that was super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but never did any of the events. I was a really bad tourist. I never did any of the touristy stuff.
You didn't do any of the E3 stuff either when you were in California?
No. The only thing I've done in California is Comic-Con. But otherwise, my bread and butter is going to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Those are in January, right?
Early January.
That's awesome. Yeah,
no, I love doing that. I used to go on behalf of a company my mother started called Aura Technic. And I was the CTO of that too, but I put that on there because we didn't really get to do anything. But we used that as our title to get into the trade show for the Consumer Electronics Show. And we did that. And we do that almost every year. I think this last year was the first year that I intentionally did not go.
Oh wow, that's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Are you going in this January coming up?
Maybe. It really depends on what tech's around. If you go right now, it's just a lot of the same VR, or maybe like a
Right. People are
drone.
still learning, so it's still an open gambit for what's really hot.
Yeah, I think when you go to a trade show so many years in a row, the joy of like when you first go to that trade show, and like I remember going for the first year, and like Linus Tech Tips was there, and I was just like, these people, like these are like my YouTube idols. My goodness, that was actually really exciting. But yeah, it's not as exciting as it was when I first went. I didn't get that same joy.
You ever thought about like setting up shop and having like a little booth there and like either talking about something or selling some of your creations that you like to tinker with and stuff like that, or no?
I always thought I might end up there somehow, somewhere or another. I know while I was there, towards the end of me working at Prismic, I was kind of looking for something new, and I met some really awesome people over at the HengeDocs booth, and just. I love their product. I'd used their product for a long time. I'm trying to remember when that was. It was, let's see. I said March 2016 on there.
Yeah.
That's
so you're gonna
so
Stuff Mapper? Is that because you were still in Seattle? Is that what you're talking about?
I was still in Seattle, yeah. So before Stuff Mapper, I applied to HengeDocs because I was talking to them. They're like, "Hey, you're like a thing or two about a thing or two. Do you want to come to San Francisco and interview?" And I interviewed, and I loved them, but I did not fall in love with San Francisco.
Yeah. San Francisco is different than Seattle and San Diego.
Yeah, it's different and
gloomy some days. But then you got the Panhandle.
The Panhandle.
So. You never been to the Panhandle or through it?
Never been to the Panhandle.
Okay, well, you're not missing nothing. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. It's what California's turned into that a little bit in certain areas with all the homeless people.
Oh,
stuff,
that panhandling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What were you talking about?
I thought it was like a restaurant name or something. I'm sorry.
No, the Panhandle. Wow, I think times would be really bad if we actually have a Panhandle restaurant that's just popping off, and like you got actual Panhandle where people are.
The homeless people are there. It's a great time.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah, they're saying while I was there. Like, oh, San Francisco's really nice, a little expensive. Oh, don't step in the puddle. You might step in either a syringe or human feces.
Exactly.
And I said, wow, I really don't like that. I'd like to not have that be my daily routine.
Yeah. And they allow it to happen. I mean, it's strange. It's strange.
It's very different. And I wasn't, it was hard for me to try to get used to that. And
nobody's used to that, man. Nobody's used to that. That's like, no one should be living like that. But I don't understand. Like, I don't think we have sociably, and through government and just society, we don't have a good means of taking care of people that fall into that category. I think that's what it is. And then outside of that, people willing to help, because like you said, you could end up contaminating yourself just going there and just having an accident or whatever, But I think people are afraid of that.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of people have really good intentions for trying to help.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, get stuck in like committing to something like that, where it's really a lot bigger than I think people intend. They're like, I'm one person, I can help thousands of people, and really it's a huge effort.
Yeah, it is. So Stuff Mapper.
What
is Stuff Mapper?
Stuff Mapper is,
and you were the CTO of Stuff Mapper.
I was, and I didn't start out that way. I started off as a senior software engineer there, and I worked up my way to CTO.
Nice.
Similar to Prismic, I kind of missed out on that. I was Samurai developer, worked my way up to CTO, and maintained that position for my entirety there, and learned lots of cool things. But nice. Being over at Stuff Mapper, same deal. It was
an early startup that you were part of?
Very early startup. Very cool idea, environment friendly, good people, and it was a product all about trying to help clean up the streets in Seattle. So there's a lot of people that leave furniture and couches and just stuff.
I got it.
On the street, and
so was that an app or something that you guys created
first? It was a mobile application and a website. So we used Cordova to make it easy to make a kind of like single code base and multiple platform kind of application. Since I was one of two people at the beginning working on it, and then ended up being the sole developer of the application. And
so what happened? People would log in, create an account, put their couch on the lawn, take a photo of it, and then say, "Hey, couch on Stuff Mapper, come buy it. It's cost this much," and then it gets posted, or what? How did that system work?
Buying, and so a lot of the stuff is already out there, and that's kind of one of the main focuses of what they're trying to do. They're trying to take the things that people are already living out there. So a lot of college kids are coming through. Yeah, free stuff. Stuff Mapper is all about free stuff, and so they noticed that some kids left like a nice, quote unquote, nice desk out on the street. They'll take a picture of it, post it on Stuff Mapper, and let people know that there is this item out there. And they have this concept of dibs, where you could go ahead and call dibs on an item. So you can, if you find it and you're like, wow, I really want that, you can say dibs, and they'll go ahead and take it off the listing so that you can run over and try to get it.
So what happens if you call dibs and someone there else is just taking it and they're not using Stuff Mapper and they're like, yo, I'm claiming this? What happened then?
then they
Fight.
got it. No, that was really kind of it. There was there's a lot of the ideas that were that they had initially in Stuff Mapper, and that was one of the things that they were trying to overcome, was the barrier of like, oh, what happens if somebody does this? What if
Stuff Mapper
Yeah.
DLC Elite
Oh,
Dueler.
no.
Yeah, right? Like,
this person in your area wants to fight you.
Yeah. You won the couch.
Exactly. So there's that opportunity. People also, if they had stuff that they wanted to get rid of, like let's say it's at their house and if they have it indoors, they'll take a picture of it and say like, hey, I have this nice whatever the item is, and I don't want it anymore. If you want it, come pick it up. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this. If you're moving and you're just like, oh, I just don't want this barbecue anymore, just put on Stuff Mapper, and somebody's like, oh, I want that barbecue.
It sounds like a safer Craigslist, but for all items that are free.
Yes, it is Craigslist free items, and we were working on implementing some kind of security features to go ahead and make this the safest experience possible. So that way, we're trying to actually get people from Craigslist. On our pitch deck, we actually had all of the startups that were trying to break away from Craigslist into separate services. So, for example, you have startups trying to say like, everybody uses Excel for everything. But what if instead of using Excel, you use this better version of Excel? Because you don't have to use Jira. You could just use Excel, but Jira is better, objectively. So that's the same thing with Stuff Mapper. Stuff Mapper wanted to take the target audience in Craigslist and apply an application specifically for that niche.
So what happened with Stuff Mapper? Did it get bought out? Is it still around? Did it get acquired or anything?
No, it's not around anymore. After a while, I was having a difficult time maintaining interest in development, and so I kind of started phasing out. I ended up moving to San Diego.
Moving back home?
Yeah, moving back home, and then helping eventually, after a while being in San Diego, help onboarding an outsourcer that was kind of taking over the responsibility, and we kind of started losing communication shortly after that because I started working at Daybreak Games.
Nice segue. So you were an operational engineer at Daybreak for 2 years.
Yes, OpsEng.
So how was that? What were all the things that you've done leading up to this preparing you for that? Or because it sounds like you've had a plethora of learning experiences that are very unconventional.
Yes.
So how it's already hard enough to start a business. You have been very lucky to be a part of a lot of startups.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to acquire how to do that from the ground up now, or as being a part of it, or was it pretty much a secondhand thing of like you were with these people when they did their startup, and then you were actually helping them become successful? Like the first guy, when he actually got bought out. The second one, you kind of helped them get their project going, and then the third one, you were trying to clean up the streets and stuff. So I mean, like, do you have that as like something in your repertoire of like you're going to continue to start companies, or?
I have a passion and interest for starting companies.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting to create have an idea and build that idea up.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like my secret repertoire of projects that I kind of keep in my back pocket of things that I'm interested in working on. But I do enjoy the industry that I'm currently in. What's very interesting, I think, about the operational engineering position over at Daybreak Games is that a lot of what I did as CTO of the other companies was I learned a lot very quickly, and I had to be responsible for a lot of different things: deploying infrastructure, maintaining and writing services for the infrastructure, writing applications for user-facing clientele, and all that still applied to my position at Daybreak. They had a lot of legacy applications, and they required a lot of maintenance and a lot of administration and a lot of work. That's where I truly started taking on that kind of like firefighter role, where I couldn't help but try to help as many people as I could.
Now, was this for the whole studio, or was this for like a specific title? Was for like H1Z1 or something, or?
I was ops eng with at the beginning 2 other individuals, and I we did ops eng for the entire company. So it was, let's see, EverQuest, DCUO, Planetside 2, H1Z1, Just Survive. I'm afraid I might have forgotten one. EverQuest 2 as well. DCUO, Planetside 2, H1Z1, Just Survive. Yeah.
Were there many operational engineers there? Was were you in the same boat
Just
where it was
me
just
and
you?
2 others.
Oh, okay.
So I did have some people to work with. I had the great pleasure of working with the mighty Judd Pickell. He was another like a midnight warrior like myself, where we put in a lot of hours and we did a lot of work, and we had, I think, a pretty good time. We both were learning a lot while doing our jobs. He was very inspiring to like keep me going. I'm like, man, that Judd guy, he works so hard. I need to work just as hard as he is. As you might see me up late at the office. It's,
Yeah.
Kind of, it started at the startups, but I think it got really ingrained when I like had my own office at daybreak, and I just kind of like locked myself in my office. And I'm there all night, and the people come in the morning. They're like, "Oh, you're wearing the same clothes." I'm like, "I forgot to go home."
That's funny. That's what happens when you get all passionate about what you're doing, though. That's cool. So at Daybreak, you were there for 2 years. So did the schooling? I'm trying to see like what helped you prepare yourself for being operational engineer. Coming from the CTO statuses, did you ever think about like, oh, I'm taking a step back? Were you just like, oh, this is my break to get into like a bona fide game studio? Because they actually had a lot of success when they got broken off into becoming their own studio.
Yeah, when they became Daybreak Games, they had a lot of great success with H1Z1. I think kind of to put it all together, when I came to San Diego, I'm looking for a new thing, and a past friend of mine, Steve Milton, was the manager of operational engineering, and it was a step down in position and step down in pay and title and everything. But I was really interested. I was like, well, shoot, this is like a full circle. When I worked at the pet store, I wanted to work at Sony Online Entertainment as a perforce administrator. Future Ryan wasn't able to tell past Ryan that perforce administration is not fun. It's really, really awful. But it was kind of like it all like came around circle, and I came back to San Diego, and this position at Daybreak Games, which was formerly Sony Online Entertainment, had a position available for me, and I had gained enough skill to be able to work there. I was not properly compensated for the work that I did, but in the
most
end,
times one truly isn't.
yeah, and I have to say I had such a blast at Daybreak Games. It was a really awesome surprise to be able to work with such awesome, talented, unique, and interesting people from different disciplines and different backgrounds. Some people are fresh to the company. Some people have been there, almost 18 years. And I still, to this day, those are some of like the coolest, most awesome people I've gotten to work with.
That's cool. Do you still keep in contact with them now? Or
I try to every once in a while. I'm not the best at contacting people, but I do talk to those guys every once in a while. I hope that I don't lose contact with them, because they're all amazing.
Nice. That's awesome. So now we're back where we started. We're at the tools and automation engineer. So coming from the operational engineer going into what you do now, is there any overlap or
It's
for what
almost
you're doing?
100% overlap.
Okay.
So the operational engineering position is more of like an old school title. It's not very modern. Really, what I was doing there was tools and automation engineering as well as DevOps engineering. We got to work with a lot of infrastructure. We got to write a lot of services applications. We worked with every team, core tech, gameplay engineers, and game teams, all of tech ops, platform, CS, QA, just everybody. And a lot of it was mostly automation, but that's what OpsEdge was. It was what today's tools automation and DevOps engineers are. It's just that Nexon is a very modern, forward-thinking company, and the people who work there are good about picking, I guess, titles for people. But yeah, a lot of the work that I did overlapped. A lot of the experience that I got at Daybreak carried over to help me secure the position at Nexon. Especially given that it was a game studio. I got a lot of really good experience because I had the knack of trying to help as many people as I possibly could. So I got to touch a lot of different services at Daybreak, and that helped me learn enough to impress the very, very intelligent, amazing people at Exxon.
That's pretty cool. So it's from just thinking back to our conversation, it sounds like you got a lot of experience from just life experiences that kind of helped round you out to be such the conversationalist you are, and being able to communicate with what needs to be done task-wise on any given job that you're doing, and being very knowledgeable too. So it almost makes me feel like I don't know, like the schooling in the beginning didn't really. I mean, you did learn a lot of programming, it sounds like, from what you talked about when you did like the languages and stuff, but it doesn't seem like the schooling for your, like, in your path that you did helped you as much. I mean, I don't recall you ever saying anything about how, like, what you did there, especially going into your first jobs. It was almost like you were just kind of biding your time, or kind of waiting, it feels like.
It does seem a lot like that. I will say it was really important that I went to community college and I got the education that I did while I was there, because it laid out the fundamentals of programming and programming languages, and got me the experience I needed to be able to teach myself.
And it sounds like you got it immediately, like with how you said your classes were. Because if you went to a 4-year school, I don't think you would have got, like, the meat and potatoes of what you wanted to learn right away.
I had some just truly amazing teachers while I was at that school, and I'll be honest, my first semester taking CS 111 Java 1, I didn't pass that class.
Why? I know young Ryan, as opposed to the Ryan we're talking to right now, had a different mindset on things, but why didn't young Ryan pass that class?
Young Ryan screwed around too much. I wasn't being as attentive as I needed to be. I wasn't putting enough focus or determination into the work that I needed to do.
Now, were you not taking it serious because it was community college, or because your peers that were also in class, everybody kind of just came in right out of high school? That's what I'm assuming when you talk about community college.
Most people did.
So a lot of people are still not on that maturity level of understanding, like, hey, these are the steps towards you making your future bright. So was it accumulation of that as well, like who you were around?
I think I just wasn't mature enough. That was one of the problems I also had when going to Sonoma State University. I was not mature enough, and I learned a lot of very valuable lessons while I was there. In my first semester at Miracosta Community College, I got my butt kicked because I couldn't handle it. I was like a disaster.
Like, as far as, like, you mean in prioritizing your workload and making sure that you can get your stuff done on time.
If I was missing classes, I wasn't doing my homework, I wasn't studying. Was
that how it was in high school for you too?
Yeah, I got by really easy. I was able to take whatever class I wanted, and I was able to do very well in it with very little effort. And so it didn't really prepare me.
Yeah, I've heard that before from some people. Like, I don't know what it is. Is that just something like internal that does that? Because the people that I've talked to before, where they're like, hey, high school is just a breeze. Like, it just came to you. Like, it made sense. But then going into that further education was like, whoa, reality set in. I didn't learn the things in high school of planning, prepping, and all sorts of stuff that I needed to carry on for college. Like, where did you finally go, aha, okay, it makes a lot of sense now?
So when it first made sense, so coming from high school, I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how the world worked. I had like my San Diego bubble perception of how the world operated, and boy, was I wrong. Life kicked my butt a couple times, and I truly deserved it. And then when going to Miracosta Community College, first semester, did very bad. And my teacher, Miss June Porto, who's to this day one of the best teachers I have ever had.
They seem to have really cared, it sounds like
yes,
on a personal level between each student, instead of just grouping you as a group, as like a whole.
They were really good at paying attention to the people that they thought the people who were there who wanted to be there, that weren't just there because their parents were making them go there. And so because Miss June Porto gave me a little extra attention and kind of was like, oh, you're this close, you're really smart, and you could do this, but if you don't do your homework, you're not going to be able to learn this kind of stuff. It's a new language, come on. And so I tried again the next semester and made some really good friends, and I realized that me just doing this on my own wasn't the most practical solution. And I was asking a couple of people. I remember talking to one friend next to me, and I said, hey, you seem to really get this stuff. Can I buy you a burger and we can like talk code? And he's like, you don't have to buy stuff. What? And that was the beginning of a very beautiful friendship, and helped me. We studied together, we became good study buddies, and we started growing a group of these guys that all were very passionate about trying really hard to be really good, and we kind of had that competitive nature against each other to kind of like keep on pushing ourselves. And that was like the beginning of some of the best years of my life. It was really right there when I wasn't doing well in community college, and I met these guys, and they were motivated. I became motivated. We were all motivated, and we just kind of pushed through it. And shoot, I remember taking data structure and architecture types, CS 113. And when I completed my final, I handed it to the teacher, and I was like, I got 100%. Like there's not a question I missed. And I remember him looking at it, and he's like, oh yeah, that's you did. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll see you next semester. But it took a long time. It was really difficult to get to that point. But yeah, having that community of early on developers who were all learning at the same time just was extremely fun to learn together, to grow together, to get better together, to get through these classes and do well. And I just, again, best years of my life. I loved it. So through all that, learning the fundamentals of programming, all the concepts, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, generics, whatever, that all helped me be a better self-teacher for moving on to different programming languages, because the concepts stay the same, the syntax changes, and some of the logic changes, but it's primarily the same. And so, yeah, it's just kind of went from there.
That's pretty cool. That's cool, man. Yeah, I think a lot of people these days are going towards community college to start. So now it does sound like not only did community college like prepare you for the languages and understanding, how to have a better perception of how to educate yourself on the languages. It sounds like your college background was more of like just helping you mature a little bit more, as opposed to you blossomed in college. So it sounds like that's what that was there for, and that definitely helped you, because start going to those startups, like you were a one-man crew. You were with another person but I don't know if people understand there's a lot of work that goes into doing something by yourself, and now you're on a two-man wrecking crew for a new startup. There's a lot of responsibility there. Like, you can tell immediately if someone's dropping the ball or not able to do the things they say they can do, because it's a two-man team.
Yes. Yes. For Prismic, especially, that was a learning experience for a lot of people. It was a lot of people's like first time having called a big boy job for now. Those are all our first big boy job. And I really exclusively worked with one other person, Jocko Gores from Belgium. Super cool guy. Really liked him. But he was not as available as I was. And so that's when he was the CTO, and I ended up actually becoming the CTO in his place. And we ended up having to look for more talent. So it ended up just being me, myself, and I for a good while. But we had my good friend Bryce Harlan, who's up in New York working at more startups, because he's just that kind of guy too. He kind of do everything, jack of all trades, master of everything. And so it's, you're right. Yeah, you know when somebody's dropping the ball. You can tell when there's a weak point in the system. And we ended up growing the team. I think the largest in terms of engineering, I think it was 4 to 8. I think it was 8 at its biggest. And that was like, we had like people working on analytics to try to show to investors. We had backend systems, pipelines for getting the products into the 3D form that they needed to be in so that we could display them in WebGL. We had people working on the viewer, the different experiences that we could have in the viewer, like points of interest, working with clients, integrations. So there's a lot of work to do, and I surely couldn't do all that by myself. So I was fortunate enough to be able to actually work with a lot of people and kind of get we all worked together to make that happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's I guess that one was kind of like the exception because we had a lot of people that ended up touching the product, but a lot of it would be on my own.
Did you do the hiring of those people too, like for interview skills and so on, like, or did you guys like use a management group that would outsource the HR and do the hiring for you, and then just introduce you guys to the people you worked with?
We did all the hiring ourselves at
Okay.
Prismic, and actually every startup that we've done. It's a lot of I know this person that does this thing, or
So you know a friend of a friend type thing.
yeah. Because
But how did that go? I mean, because it sounds like you did get a lot of life experience when you had to interview somebody. How did that go over? Or were you like, hey, everything looks good. I think you all want you on the team, blah, 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 you know?
I think that at the beginning of me interviewing people, I remember being very judgmental because I didn't really know what to expect. I guess I didn't know too much about interviewing myself, and I was a bad interviewer, I think. But I tried to keep it really casual, very startup-y. Take people to lunch and talk over lunch. So something not conventional. A lot of like,
So
hey,
it's very casual,
very
like just to
casual.
know the person and not the skill set, right? That's
Yeah,
what it sounds like.
there's that part of it. I liked doing like take home projects where it's like, hey, here's like I want you to come up with an idea, and then I'd like you to implement it in whichever way you best see fit. And I remember the first guy we hired, Nathan. We did exactly that, where we said, hey, come up with an idea and then implement it. And so he came up with an idea. He explained how he wanted to do it. He broke it down really well, and then he started implementing it. He kind of updated us on his progress. By the end of the deadline, he didn't finish it, but that's not really what we were trying to get.
What was he doing to update it? What was he using a code? Was he using some of the APIs you're talking about earlier, or
So
what?
he wrote it from scratch. It was something that he wrote in Node.js, and because we had a lot of Node.js at Prismic, so he joined in doing that as well.
Is
it was
Node.js still used currently, or
Node.js is still it's JavaScript, so
Okay.
it's JavaScript on the back end.
okay?
A lot of people use it. A lot of people don't like it.
Yeah, because just to make sure, like Node.js, reason why I ask, because if people are watching and don't know what it is, it's good to know, and especially if they want to go into what you're doing, is that something they need to learn, or
Your tool belt, or like your tool set that you're going to use, really can be developed on your own.
what works for you, what you find works
what
best
works
with
for
how
you, or what works best with whatever tools or whatever system you're building. Like you don't write a video game in Node.js. You typically write it in C++, or in the case of Unity, C#. So it really depends on like what is performance looking for. Are you doing networking? Is there a language that's already preferred for that type of project? So you end up learning what works best for you and what works best for what you're trying to build. And so I keep myself very diverse, where I'll do like build systems in Python. I like doing desktop applications in Electron, which is Node.js. So a lot of JavaScript. I'm still right now. I'm working on being better at C++, so that way I can write better, more performant backend systems. So it really depends on what you're trying to build.
It seems like, I know sometimes jack of all trades is thrown around within people's careers, and it's not really a good thing, but it seems like in what you do, being a jack of all trades is highly beneficial because of putting out fires, but also understanding the diverse set of tools that you have in order to approach different situations or issues, because one may be more maybe the better choice to fix an issue or resolve an issue, as opposed to just sticking to your guns and be like, well, we started this in this certain type of API or whatever, and you're like, we're going to stick to this, and then you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah. If you don't mind me kind of diverting to Daybreak Games, a couple lessons learned from working there. They used a lot of legacy systems, and it was written in C++, and it will die in C++. And
Was that because of proprietary tools?
so many proprietary tools. Everything it's video game development industry. The video game development industry is notorious for build it in-house. In-house is better. Is in-house more like outhouse, am I right?
Well, you know why they want to do that, right?
So they want to do that because they think they can do it better.
And make a lot of money off of it.
I feel like that's like pretty spicy to say. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. Well, no, but that's not just for that studio. A lot of companies do that, but I think a lot of companies do that with the intent on they're making proprietary tools to go with their engine.
Money. They think it will work better with integrations.
But they also want to license it. You know, a lot of places I've been, they're like, ooh, this worked great for us. If we license it, we can make even more money. You know, which is a weird way of approaching it. Like
a lot of people do have like that intention initially, where they're saying like, oh man, I have this like great idea. Like, you know what we have a problem with? Host monitoring. I'm going to write host monitoring software. It's going to be the best. I think I did this. This is like me making fun of myself. It's like, we're going to make this new software. We're going to deploy it. We're going to kill and cripple Nagios and all those other old school things that everybody's using. We're going to change the industry. And it's, it's tough to do that. You work at a company, legal wants to step in and say like, no, like you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Don't open source that. Don't share that with anybody. We don't want to license that. It's going to be a legal nightmare. So I think a lot of people have the intent of like building something great. Like, I'm going to make a game engine and we're going to deploy it and it's going to make us all this money, but it's not usually going to do that. I don't think. I think there are exceptions. Like, Epic has a very good game engine, for example, and they write it for themselves and they write it for everybody else, and that's what we're using, and we're sticking to it. It's not great in my opinion, but it's the best right now, so that's what we do.
Have you ever, because of your technical background, you ever done like TechCrunch? You know what TechCrunch is? You ever heard of TechCrunch? It's not like CES, but it's like where a lot of people have ideas or they created something.
Like game jams?
It's almost like a game jam, but I don't think you do it there. You do it before you go. It's almost like you're submitting your game jam to be evaluated by professionals or something, and then you can win prize money or you can win notoriety and stuff like that.
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. There was a project recently where some guys used simple technology to go ahead and create like a mesh network to help.
And they would put it into this TechCrunch, and then people would evaluate it and talk about it, and they display it. Sometimes people would have like a working version of whatever it is, and
show it off.
Yeah, they can get investors from stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems like that'd be something up your alley. Like,
it's something that I'm always interested in. I don't devote a lot of time outside of work to
currently.
Currently.
Yeah.
I'm trying to fix that. I think anybody that knows me is like, he's a liar. I'm trying to fix that. I'm actually really interested in game jams. I think I actually really want to get into trying to get better at game development so I can, participate in those, because I have some friends that like to do the game jams. I had a friend that just got for Global Game Jam. They won most creative game, and I wish I could have worked on that project with you. I don't have the skill set yet. And so that's why I'm kind of going back to like the fundamentals of programming and trying to make sure that I have my fundamentals down in a C++, so that way when I move into Unreal Engine and I'm doing C++ and Unreal Engine, that I'm not going to just be all aboard the struggle bus.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I think those things are important, because when most times you hear about people who win those type of shows or awards, like they end up getting gobbled up by like Valve or some kind of company that really fosters that creativity.
Yeah,
and
sometimes
they'll
Sony's
get the
just
whole
like
team.
Money.
Yeah, they'll get the whole team and be like, we want to get you all here, and then they'll kind of absorb them into the fold of what they're trying to create, and then magic happens after that. Yeah,
that's a lot of indie games are born, I think, and I do love indie games.
What are you playing? What are you playing that's an indie game right now?
Oh, indie games right now? Shoot, I mostly am playing like if I look at like games that I'm playing, they're indie games. Dead Cells is technically an indie game. Small studio in Europe. A couple.
I just heard about that today. Dead Cell. Like, I watched a video on it. I didn't know what it was. It looks really cool.
It looks really cool. An unconventional Metroidvania roguelite.
It's the one where the dying doesn't mean it's the end. You have this whole other side of the game. The
concept of permadeath in any roguelike game. Roguelike being the games like Rogue back, like ASCII games. Where I guess you're like a pound symbol going through randomly generated, procedurally generated maps. So there's for roguelites, there's like a fundamental set of rules. One of the most popular ones is permadeath. I don't know if you've heard like Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon, Rogue Legacy. There's a whole slew of games that are excellent that people have made that are these roguelike games.
Is Dead Cell multiplayer?
Dead Cells is a single player game. It's a side scroller kind of hack and slash, again, Metroidvania roguelike game where at the very beginning it seems a little cruel, but you kind of figure things out and you realize that it gets a lot harder very quickly. The progression in the game, I love that stuff.
That's awesome. I didn't know it was roguelike though. I thought it was just like that Castlevania, Metroid. You just run around killing stuff.
It has a lot of those concepts. So because there's a lot of ways to grow in your power and your strength in that game, and they did such a good job. I think.
The art's beautiful too.
I love that art. They actually took shortcuts to make their art. They used Blender and then exported it to like pixelized frames, so that way it was like they did the same thing for Bastion. Another just wonderful title. I loved Bastion so much. WB Games. But yeah, they made everything in Blender as 3D models, and then so instead of drawing it frame by frame, they rendered out each of the frames, and then that was their sprite sheet.
That's how we used to do it back in the day on handheld games like Game Boy and DS and stuff like that. Make
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was way more efficient way of working because you just get your camera set up and you get your little bounding box where you don't want to go outside this. We were doing like the 32 by 32 pixel stuff for some of the games. So we're like, here's your box. And then you're like, wait, that's my character? And it's pretty cool. I remember there was there was a game I worked on. It was one of the Spider-Man games where like I was the lead on that project. And I was like, man, if it's going to look all pixelated like this, I started drawing on top of it. Because all it's taking is the pixels. Like it wasn't like it took the joints like in Unreal, how when you export something it needs the joint data, it needs the mesh. It just took the colors from your palette. I think we were doing like some of them were really small palette, like maybe 16, or if depending on the type of game we would do not even 256. Like that was still a lot. Like 128 was like the max on some of the boss characters because they had more bells and whistles. We're talking about back in the day.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But we approached it the same way. We're using 3D Studio Max, and we just found our camera angle, got everything in there. But then I started drawing the stuff on there because with Venom, I was like, I want it to be different. And so like I drew him like turning into the big teeth and chomping down because there was no way to get that to work well in 3D. And so I drew it by hand, and I did a few more things like that. I remember my bosses at the time were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And it did really well and everything. But they were like, "Holy crap, dude!" They wanted to do more stuff like that, but it didn't really come together because like I remember they put us all in a room and were like, all right, come up with some ideas. You're not a character. Maybe you're a water droplet, or you're a ball, or you're this. Like it was like, and we were sitting there looking at each other like, what?
Trying to think outside the box.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they were saying. Like think outside the box and just be creative. But they were like, you did a good job with drawing that stuff. We need to make some more games like that because no one's doing it. And it would have been awesome, but I don't think people were ready. Our minds weren't at that point because we were like, what do you want us to do? It was really strange.
There's a lot of exploration back in those days. I actually am quite fond of retro games just because it wasn't so data driven, it was more from the heart, I think. Somebody's like, no, we gotta play as a water droplet. They're saying that from their heart.
Yeah, it was great because I don't think we understood because he was like, maybe you're a water droplet. He's like, go, and they literally like closed us in this room, and we're all sitting there around each other like. We weren't the catalyst behind this. I mean, we were being creative on our tasks, and that's what led to this. But then we were kind of like, what do you want us to do? They just grouped like, I think it was like 4 designers, myself, a modeler, and a concept guy. And we were all just sitting in this room looking at each other like, what is our end goal? What do we need to show them? And I don't think anyone knew. So, but
sounds like that's the birthplace of beautiful things.
Yeah, but the company's still around. They still did well. It was when I was at Vicarious Visions.
Okay, cool.
It was awesome. So, but that's awesome, man. So, what are some of the things that you would, because you have more life experience as your guide to becoming successful, what are some of the things you would like to leave for people to understand or try to go towards this? Because becoming a tools or automation engineer, this will actually help you. And it's not about you looking back and going like, I should have did this or regrets? Because it sounds like you had a pretty nice.
Well, everybody has regrets.
Yeah, everybody. Well, no, but everybody has a different story and a different path to becoming successful and finding the joy in what they do. But it seems like you may be able to look back and guide others in a way of saying, like, this, and this may be more beneficial. Because what I gathered so far from our conversation, there's a lot of things that I didn't know about you. I knew you were like the CTO of something. You brought it up, in conversation one time before, but I didn't know the extent of it. But what I have learned tonight is that you're very knowledgeable in a lot of different languages, a lot of different things and tools, and APIs and NGO, all this stuff. I've heard those things before, but I don't dabble in it that deep to understand it like that. But what are some of the things you would leave for people to say, like, hey, this would be great if you're in high school or if you're coming out of high school, this would be great. If you're getting ready to go to college, even if you go to community college, look for these courses. Like, what are some of the things that you would tell young Ryan? If you're able to look back when he's getting ready to fill out his application to go.
Don't do it.
What are some of the things that you would say that would be helpful, you think?
Shoot, what do I tell young Ryan? Young Ryan kind of sucked. So I don't know if anything I told him. I don't think he listened to me. But I'd say some of the most valuable lessons that I learned is that I learned how to learn. And that's something that I, surprisingly enough, did not learn in high school. But I most certainly was forced to learn how to learn quickly and efficiently in community college. And so learning how to study, learning about dedication, and really seeing how putting the time in really pays off.
How would a person, like you said, you're in high school, you skated by with great grades, it just came easy to you. If you're looking back, how would a person know to acknowledge that, to be able to go, whoa, I'm not learning what I need? Obviously, at that age, you don't think about it.
Nothing.
Well, at that age, I don't think you think about it. But looking back, was there any moments that you can think of where you were like, this is too easy? Or am I really retaining this? Is there any moments like that you can recall? Or is there anything that, because if someone's watching this that is in high school and they're getting by easy, they may go down the same path that you went down, where you're getting ready to go to college. You're like, oh my God, college is hard. What are some of the things that you should look out for if you fit that bill of like, hey, high school is easy, I'm making all A's, and I should probably reevaluate some things?
I guess the one thing I would look back at is, when I was in high school, I played a lot of MMORPGs, and it's not exactly the best use of my time. I sure liked it at the time, but it's not the best use of my time. And while being very dedicated to these MMORPGs, I was still maintaining good grades in college, in high school, which I think that should be like a huge red flag, because I'm not trying in school, but I'm doing very well, and I'm dedicating more time to this MMORPG. So if, let's say, you're an avid PUBG, Fortniter, anyone who still plays H1Z1, I'm sorry, taking that attention and that focus and putting it valuable life skills, because nowadays, with these series of tubes and webs and such called the internet, we have so much knowledge and so much data available at our fingertips to just be able to go to Udemy and spend $10 on learning Rust, learning C++, learning Golang, whatever you want to learn, you can go out there learn. You want to be an architect? I was looking at some architecture courses just last week on Pluralsight. So there's learning resources online that you could dedicate your time to. So while you're going to school, you can do that. There's a lot of things you can do to better the time that you have before you get into college. So you can maybe experiment a little bit. For those who are interested in computers, see if that's what you want to do. Anybody can do computer science, but computer science isn't for everybody.
And it seems like with that knowledge, that is the best time to do that, because when you get older, you can play games all you want, especially if you're able to take care of yourself and make a really good living, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I got homework, or I got this, or I got that. You can really enjoy life. From what I know, you can enjoy life now, as opposed to when you're still living with mom and dad or whoever's raising you, and you're like taking advantage of playing games all the time, even though there's nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about those individuals who we're trying to help those people who, when they get ready to go to college, if high school was easy, there should be some red flags you should kind of make yourself aware of, because you want to mitigate that before you get to college. You don't want college. College shouldn't be hard. You shouldn't want it to be difficult. It's just continued learning. But there's, like what we talked about already tonight, which is the maturity. Everybody has their own maturity level when they get to it. They reach that cap, and it still grows as you get older.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important what you said about, like, if you notice that you have a lot of time to put into games, and you notice that you're not really doing much in school, but you're doing great with your grades, that is a huge red flag.
Yeah. I feel like, like if I told that to past me, I would not respond so kindly.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, well, screw you. I'm playing games. I'm having fun. And, I look back and I'm like, oh, man, I really liked playing those games. I had a really good time generally playing those games.
And you meet a lot of people playing games like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a bad thing, but
I did it with friends, It was a very collective, very social experience for me, because I'm more introverted. So
you mean then, right? I don't think you're like that now. I don't think so.
I'm pretty vibrant in the workplace, I think.
So when you get to work, you're a different person, and when you leave the work, you're like, oh my god!
Stare at my shoes I had in the hole.
The sun.
I love this one. We go hiking, man.
That's funny. Where do you go hiking at?
Oh, we go. We've been doing Black Star Canyon. I just got back from Yosemite. I like doing in San Clemente. It's called Patriot Hill. My mother calls it Patriot Hell.
Now, is this straight up hiking, or is this like the rucksack stuff you're talking about?
This is the rucking stuff.
Okay.
Trying to live a healthier lifestyle. I was a runner. I'm built like a runner, but I'm deadly afraid of following the same fate of my parents and having fake knees.
Well, fake knees of the future aren't that bad.
I certainly hope so, because I think no matter what I do, I'm going to have them. But running is a bit tough on my knees. So rucking is, I think, like a good intermediary. Like, it's not running. It's not great for your knees, but it's better than running.
Now explain what rucking is. Now these are the things that when you get older and you've already been able to take care of yourself, you can enjoy these activities.
Yes.
So what is
your
rucking?
Change over time.
I didn't know it was what rucking was until you explained it to me recently. But what is rucking?
So this is my I am a novice explanation. It is they practice in the military. It's being able to carry large quantities of weight over ridiculous quantities of distance, lengths, and time. Really pushing yourself to your human limit. So our good friend Andy Thorne over at Nexon invited anybody to help him practice for a ruck. He was doing a 50-mile star course where I think he was carrying 20 pounds weight, dry weight.
I think he said most of it was water and snacks or something like that, right?
Yeah, so it's 20 pounds dry weight. So it is a sandbag that you cannot get rid of. Everything else is disposable. It's food, it's water. I think for the Star Course, they actually took your food away, and they would have taken the water away, but they can't because that's illegal. You can't do that. But yeah, that ends up being a lot of your weight. Like when I went to Yosemite, I had a 20-pound or 15-pound brick in my backpack, and I think I had 40 pounds of water because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be that guy that's gonna have the water. Someone's gonna be like, wow, I'm thirsty, and be like, whoosh, I got some water for you. But that never happened.
Yeah. You drank it all yourself, probably.
No, I didn't drink anything. I just had weight, and it was heavy, and I refused to drop it.
Wow. How often do you do the rucking?
I'm trying to go 3 times a week. Try to go on the weekends. Have a nice, good hike on the weekends. Go somewhere new. I want to go back to Black Star Canyon. I don't think it's going to be as wet as it was last time I went. That's where there's a 7-mile hike. There's a big waterfall at the end. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I went in the wet season, so there was a big river, and that was kind of a hazard. Is a make your own kind of trail kind of thing.
So is it a slower pace activity? I don't think you should be running with all that extra weight on you. Is it more like walking? You said hiking, so you're going uphill, downhill.
Yeah,
so that is on the Achilles and the knees.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely feel it in my ankles now more than anything. I never thought about it until it started
Burning?
It's burning. It's like it's
Snappage?
no snappage. No, it's like kind of like you start feeling pain where you're like, wow, if I keep on doing this, I might injure myself. And so it's been better form, better practice, better time between actually doing the activities, not pushing yourself too hard. Andy's number one rule is don't get hurt. So just trying to make sure that we're all staying safe when we do all these rucking activities together. Like during the week, I only do like just over 3 miles. So doing kind of like a 5K just outside the parking lot in the office, Tuesdays, Thursdays.
Special shoes?
No. I just have good running shoes, that fit your feet. I have high arches, which sucks a whole lot, but I have nice shoes that make it so that they don't suck so much. Usually just means shin splints, which suck. And then when I go hiking, like Yosemite, I just try to have really nice hiking boots. I have waterproof boots that are a lifesaver, especially like at Yosemite. It was raining while we were hiking, and I got drenched, but my feet were dry.
Nice, that's awesome. They just have to have a bodysuit that's like that.
I had the option to wear a poncho, and I said I'd look like a fool if I was wearing a poncho, so I didn't wear it.
You're not supposed to care what people think. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It didn't seem very comfortable. It felt like it was going to be like a humidity trap of doom. And so I kept like just the backpack. I had a running shirt on and my hunting pants on, and it was extremely cold. And I was like, mind over body, mind over body. I was very cold and miserable.
Well, that is awesome, man. I want to say thank you for coming out and for talking about your story and sharing with everybody your experience, your life experiences, and how they've afforded you to be where you want to be in the games industry. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here on the show.
Awesome.
It's an absolutely great time. It's super fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I hope you guys learned something new. Thanks. Be back soon.